Hi, welcome to Promo Insiders, an ASI media podcast that covers the issues that matter most to the promotional products industry. I'm Chris Ruvo for ASI, and we've got a great guest today, Randy Carr, and a hot button topic, tariffs. But before we jump into that, here's a quick word from our sponsor.
SNS Activewear and Alpha Broder are integrating to become the premier partner for the apparel industry. With one website, one purchase order, over 100 beloved brands, and 14 distribution centers, you can streamline your ordering and operations while being able to hit free freight faster than ever. Benefit from 1 to 2 day shipping with the lowest error rate in the industry, and leverage combined net term limits to benefit your business like never before. Starting May 30th, the Alpha Broder website will be retired. However, customers will now have one login, one experience, and everything they need all at ssactivewear.com.
All right, so as I said, joining me today is Randy Carr, CEO of World Emblem, a Counselor Top 40 supplier. He's proactive in his leadership style, especially when it comes to addressing challenges, and he doesn't mind being candid about his approach. That's why we felt Randy would be just the right kind of executive to have on to discuss how tariffs and talk of tariffs even is affecting business and what to do about it. So Randy, thank you for joining me today.
Happy to be here, Chris. Thanks.
All right, so let's jump into the first question here. Just can you give us a little background on World Emblem? How long has the firm been around? What do you sell? All that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, so the business has been around since 1993. We have 1,500 employees. We manufacture in the States, in Mexico, Canada, in Europe, and distribute to clients all over the world.
Right. So given that, footprint all over, you're in multiple geographic markets. Obviously, it's a large company. You're a Counselor Top 40 firm. What kind of impacts have the tariffs and even just the talk around tariffs had on your business so far in 2025?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we, you flash back to the beginning of the year, the end of December. Everything was about USMCA.
Mm-hmm.
And we went into this assuming that it was going to be all about that, and that was it.
Okay.
So originally they had the 25% tariff. Now, just World Emblem is governed under USMCA, so we have maquiladora in Mexico, bring a lot of goods into the States and Canada. So that was incredibly impactful for us originally. When it was originally put through in February, I think it was February 2nd, the next week we were already in our mitigation strategy, which we planned for in early December.
Okay.
If you recall, about 2 hours after it was supposed to be, no, I'm sorry, a day before it was supposed to be put through, it was reversed.
Right.
And then in March, again, it was actually put through, and then 3 days later, it was reversed again.
Yeah.
During that 3 days, the tariff cost us almost $150,000 in duties, because we didn't know.
Are those, Randy? Are those in addition to what have been your normal?
When you ship? All right, I should clarify. When you ship under USMCA, it's a free trade agreement. So
yeah,
between Mexico and Canada and the States.
So no tariffs, basically.
No tariffs at all. So when they originally put the tariffs through, it was so unclear to even the customs brokers, FedEx, and even the U.S. government. Nobody actually knew whether they were going in or not. And we were on the phone with our brokers and our trade representatives in Washington and asking what's happening. This was like Friday. Monday or Tuesday it was put through. And even then they were like, we don't have anything in our record, so you're not going to get charged. And then 2 weeks later, $150,000 was taken out of our bank account.
Oh, by the way.
So it was on it's
what's going on with that ACH?
Well, let me and mind you, the next week it happened again, and it happened a third time. So, we actually were debited almost $400,000.
Okay.
We were able to reverse 100 of it, and we still have to go collect another 150 from the government because it was done erroneously. So it's just things were happening so fast that there was just no way to keep up with it, even from the government or the broker side. So it's been fairly chaotic.
So, let me give people a little context who are listening. So I think sometimes when people think tariffs in our industry, if they're not dealing with it every day, they may be thinking China. We're, of course, talking about the tariffs that pertain to Mexico and Canada. You referenced the United States Mexico Canada agreement, right? So that's what this tariff kerfuffle, for lack of a better word, that you had. Is that what that pertained to?
Yeah, for sure. And the original, the administration's original pretense was all about fentanyl. I mean, you got to go back 94, 100 tariffs ago. But it was the original pretense was fentanyl and illegal border crossings between Canada and Mexico, which, the administration, I think they got what they wanted. But in the end, now USMCA is still enforced, which is good for the businesses that are trading under USMCA. But it seems like the energy has now moved to the rest of the world.
Right. Right.
So, and we trade quite a bit with China, Thailand, Cambodia.
So how's that then affecting you? Those tariffs, and you're in Europe as well. So
yeah. So here's what I would say. We're a manufacturer first, but we bought a business back in October that buys all their goods from China. So that originally we were pretty happy for about 10 minutes after he made the announcement that USMCA was off the table.
Right.
And then we realized that indirectly we're about to get stung on the rest of these things. So so there was the China and the Cambodia and all that when he went through Liberation Day. Talking to President Trump, and the windup of it was, we were happy with one thing, but obviously this created a situation for the business we bought, number one, and then we started looking at all the materials we buy.
Okay.
And then we started getting emails from customers and the impact on our customers now. So it wasn't just our supply chain or what we actually buy and resell. Okay. It's now our customers that buy headwear, our customers that buy garments. The impact of that, the impact of that had the same reaction, which was, oh my God, this is going to be horrible. Our business is going to fall off a cliff. So now we're thinking there's this other sort of second or third level, which is
another layer out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's sort of been one, I would say, diversion or catastrophic event after another in relation to this. I can't say any of this has been entertaining at all.
Okay. Are you already seeing impacts on business, on demand, or right now is it more just like how are we going to manage cash flow?
No, all right. So our business is pretty geographic, right? So we manufacture in all over the place. So I think what we're doing now is really trying to shift the majority of our procurement into Mexico and the States.
Okay.
And really do our very best to take advantage of the fact that we're governed under USMCA, and we're able to run the business without charging the tariffs.
Okay.
There's a place where we do buy some emblems for the company that we bought in September from China, who's under now this 145% tariff.
Right.
Where we can ship that product to Mexico and leverage the fact that we're in Mexico and not charge a tariff.
Okay.
And we're hoping to actually capitalize on that. So
that's such a smart move. I could just interject, sorry, because I think a lot of suppliers are trying to, if they don't have the capability, they're trying to have the capability to do that. And ones that do are saying, hey, where can I move within my supply chain to still provide the same products, but not have that incredibly onerous tariff hit?
I think it's a little like COVID, right? I mean, it just has that same kind of creepy, eerie feel where, we talked about it a lot at work where it's very disruptive. It has the same kind of feeling. And I think the pie is going to be bigger when this is over for the people that can get through it. And, if you have a diverse enough supply chain or a diverse enough manufacturing base, you should be able to be opportunistic to take advantage of it. So like we've done a couple things. The first thing is we are shifting merch to our factory in Mexico.
Right.
We're also in the middle of building a second factory in the Dominican Republic. So and that
you're building one.
Yeah, we are building. Okay. We are building in the Dominican Republic right now.
All right.
And a lot of that was due to the inflation from the first round of Trump tariffs in 2018. But we weren't going to do it this year. But after the USMCA bit in February, we just weren't going to risk the administration. The trade deficit is big, and we weren't going to risk that being an issue for us. Like we just weren't going to have it. So, it's partly the inflation. I only say this: it's mostly inflation.
Okay.
And that's really what it's about, moving out of Mexico. We're not actually moving. We're building a second facility.
Mm-hmm.
It's also due to growth, but the real issue is there's just no in our mind, there's no thought that when this really does come up in 2026 to be renegotiated,
Mm-hmm.
that they're not going to go back and there's not going to be some sort of impactful tariff. I mean, we're
Okay.
betting on the fact that there's going to be a tariff against Mexico and Canada.
Okay. All right. So it's a way by setting up this facility in the Dominican Republic, it's a way of kind of bulwarking against that a little bit. It's an anticipation of it. Is that fair or no?
Yeah, I think like it's a lot of it's about the inflation in Mexico, first of all. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, inflation's up. I think if you look at the stats, it's like 45% since
Oh
2020.
wow.
So,
Okay.
so the costs are, I mean, we're being asked from our union to give 15% increases every year, and that's just not sustainable. You
Not
can't chase
sustainable.
that.
Yeah.
You just can't chase it with price increases. It's
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
So, and as much as it sounds great to bring jobs back to the States, the price points that we need to sell our goods at are not sustainable
Mm-hmm.
given the current manufacturing processes that are used to make what we make. That it can be done with AI, it can be
Mm-hmm.
done with robotics and automation. The technology does exist, but it requires an enormous capital investment and time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of all these factors. So like if you go back, so for us it was the first thing tariffs USMCA.
Yeah.
Second piece of it was tariffs against the Far East. But
Mm-hmm.
what you're really on what we're really seeing is just tariffs,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
tariffs everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So and then we see inflation, and
Mm-hmm.
we need to move out of Mexico to another low cost country, which we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we need to add an element of automation and artificial intelligence and robotics to the business,
Mm-hmm.
and reshore to fulfill our current administration's agenda where we can do it, where it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So that's kind of what we're doing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and that's you really you answered. I was gonna say, what are all these different? It's like a multi-pronged strategy that you have going, and that's all that's in play. Or those are all the various things that are in play right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
All right. So that's working for you, and I'm not asking you to call
I don't want to
anybody
say it's
out.
working. I don't want to say it's
What?
working. I don't want to say it's
Okay.
working because
Okay.
we're working a problem.
Hmm.
Our clients have been awesome with this whole
Yeah.
thing. That's the other thing. Like, sort of, it's similar to COVID. Like everybody's kind of in this together, and everyone's kind of.
Yeah.
That's why I'm on this podcast with you today. I'm being as transparent with our strategy as I can be. And I would talk to anybody that called me and talk them through kind of what we went through. But we probably spent a couple hundred hours breaking down this strategy. So
Okay. Okay. So there's been a lot that's gone into it, and not asking you to call anybody out here, of course, but just are there things that you see maybe others doing that are maybe that are mistakes from importers or manufacturers, just moves that you think, for others who might be trying to feel their way through this, could you say, hey, maybe don't do this, maybe that's not the best way, like anything like that?
look, I think it's unfair for me to speak to I don't know people's financial situation or their infrastructure. I mean, I happen to have a really good like tech infrastructure and back office,
Mm-hmm.
so we're able to kind of do these things. And we're I would say more aggressive than most, which is why we
Mm-hmm.
moved so quickly to get the leases signed to the DR, and we doubled
Mm-hmm.
our investments in technology because we sort of said we're not. I guess there's two schools of thoughts, and ours was we're not going to be a victim of this. Like we're not going to let this get us. We're going to get
Okay.
ahead of it, and we've always kind of been like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I, like we talk a lot about diversifying our supply chain, diversifying our
Mm-hmm.
customer base,
Mm-hmm.
diversifying our product groups, in order to be immune from individual shifts of things. So, um, in some sense, we're super lucky, or I would say fortunate. I'm not sure lucky is the word, but we're super fortunate that we dodged sort of the USMCA bullet.
Mm-hmm.
But the other sense is the fact that we bought a business in October, um, that buys all their merch from China. And
It's
half of it
hitting
is
you.
stuff that we
Yeah.
make. We're able to
Yeah.
move it, but the rest of it, we're paying duties on like everybody else, and we're getting
Yeah.
hit with it, and we're getting hit with it hard, and it's terrible. And every time I have to sign a check, it's nauseating.
I was going to ask you actually, Lon, that there's some companies, not just our industry, of course, across importing industries
It's
that have just
crazy.
put a pause on importing right now. You guys are continuing to bring in.
We definitely are.
Hmm.
we're sourcing super hard in other
Okay.
areas, but some of the stuff we're doing, I mean, again, this business I bought, the business name is Heroes Pride, and they
Mhm.
distribute emblems, badges, and labels to law enforcement, police, the
Yeah.
military, and all that. So there's an element of their business that's all duty gear, and this stuff
Hmm.
is curated and injection molded, and it's not stuff I make.
Okay.
And it came along when we were interested in the emblem business. It came along with it. So no, we have these clients to serve, and we
Hmm.
bought this business, and then 3 months later, this right. So it's
This.
like
Yeah.
so we're just going to take that on the chin until we figure it out. Like
Okay.
clearly, like everybody else, we're hoping that some deals made, but when you watch the Sunday talk shows and such,
Hmm.
it doesn't sound overly encouraging, frankly.
Yeah.
At
Not
least
not
today.
at not at this point. Yeah, not this. But we know that things can change quickly.
Yeah, it
Um.
does. What are we at? 102 tariffs now, or 103? I think I said 90, but I think like as of this morning, it's 103 tariffs
Yeah.
since the new administration came in.
And as of right now, we'll just remind everybody that the reciprocal tariffs, which are the kind of country specific, are on a pause right now. They're subject to the baseline 10% import rate. If that were to go back, if those reciprocal tariffs were to go back into effect, you now would see elevated rates on all those
Yeah,
countries as well.
I just don't, it's challenging. It's challenging I think this industry is very import centric. So,
Yeah. All right, so I'm glad you brought that up because you also mentioned it earlier, and it was another thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is made in the USA. We do there's a big emphasis from the presidential administration on bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. I think I think if you're an American, no one objects to that. We'd all love to see as many things made here, probably as possible. But I'm asking you to put whatever patriotic feeling you might have aside and just look at it from like kind of a cold business perspective. Like, is it feasible to have massive onshoring of promo products related production that would serve our industry on mass? Is that something that you, as a sourcing expert, thinks is realistic?
look, I've been to factories in the States that have things completely automated in this
Yeah.
industry,
Yeah.
and they're absolutely crushing it.
Okay.
So the answer is it is possible.
It is
Um,
possible. Okay.
I saw it with my own two eyes.
All
So
right.
it's 100% possible, but it requires time.
Okay.
So like, let's just take something like USMCA and use that as a baseline for the discussion.
Hmm.
It's 29-year-old agreement.
Hmm.
So these companies like mine and much bigger businesses like have built foundries in these countries, like literal steel melting foundries to build
Yeah.
cars. Um, their entire supply chain is wrapped around all this. And then there's tier one, two, and three suppliers that are wrapped around this. Company's built like there's towns and cities built. To think we're going to pick it up, move back to States in a week is just not, it's just not grounded in reality. It's unreasonable. But I have seen dark plants that are running completely automated, but it just requires time, investment.
Okay.
Yeah, it requires time and investment in technology. And
Okay.
um, maybe something under the lines of um, I wouldn't say a reshoring grant because the businesses like mine have really taken advantage of the opportunity that was given to us when NAFTA was originally signed.
Hmm.
But those prices were passed on to the marketplace, so everybody benefited from it, not just
Right.
World Emblem.
Hmm.
And so to move it back to the States and think that it can be just, you're going to go from $1 to $10 for that same product, and it's going to be able to be sold into the market for $20.
Hmm.
It's just not realistic. Not under the current processes and price points.
Okay.
But I do think there's a place where the government can turn around and say, all right, here's employment grants and training grants to get staff built up. We're not, it's not about the money. It's about moving the infrastructure back to the States, laying all the people off in these other countries,
Hmm.
reshoring these jobs, getting employees trained, and then assuming that the market can accept that price that
Hmm.
needs to be higher in order to be sustainable under our wage requirements, or even what people will be willing to work to do the kind of work that's required without
Okay.
the automation that's involved.
Okay. Wow, so it's in not even just in a theoretical sense, in a practical sense, it is feasible to do this, but with all those caveats that you just said, that it's going to take time, massive investment, and at the end of the day, a very accelerated price point. Is that
I
Is
just
that
think
right?
the U.S. again, the U.S. has benefited greatly from USMCA in a lot of ways, by
Mhm.
low cost goods, by immigration and everything else, right? So we
Mhm.
built this entire economy around these three countries.
Mhm.
Now you're going to upend it and change it, and there's the ramifications of that is we need to change the way we do things in the States.
Okay.
You're not going to create more jobs.
Mhm.
The only way to make sure that we can sell stuff at the price points we need to sell it at is through complete automation
I got you.
or
Okay.
an incredible amount of inflation, which I don't know if the market will accept an $18 emblem. Like I just don't see
Yeah.
that. You know, there we get competing with China. Prior to February,
Mhm.
we were the most expensive company there was.
Okay. Okay.
So I mean, so like now it's all of a sudden it's to just do it in the States going to be 4 or 5 times more. It's just not realistic.
It's not realistic. Okay. All right. I
But I
got
do think I do think just to put a nail on that, I do think it's possible. But I
you.
think there's an incredible amount of automation and institutional knowledge that needs to be put into these things.
Mhm.
Again, like to make an emblem, it's not like a thing. It's a unique process, a unique
Mhm.
product that would require some customized equipment at large scale, which takes a lot of money and it takes time.
Let me ask you this, and I know we could get majorly in the weeds on it, but like, would there even be? And you touched on this a bit before, like the materials available to you here, or would you still have to go overseas for some of that stuff? Like, like does this raw stuff you need even does it exist here?
Yeah, the good thing about USMCA is part of it is everything's governed in these three countries. So,
Okay.
so the fabric, the film, everything we're buying within Canada, the States, and
Mhm.
Mexico, that's above de minimis. So,
Okay.
things like thread, we're not, but I shouldn't even say that. There is a portion of thread that isn't. There's a vast majority that is. So,
Okay.
or if you don't buy within these three countries, you actually don't qualify for USMCA,
Got it. Okay.
and you give away your duty-free status.
Got
So.
it. Okay.
So yeah, it is very possible, but it's interesting you brought it up. When we started looking at after USMCA was said, no duties, and they
Mm-hmm.
pushed to the Far East, we then started looking at our raw material purchases. And there's a couple $1 million worth of fabrics that we get from China. I didn't even know it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're now dealing with what the cost of that's going to be and how that's going to impact our products, and we still think we can absorb those costs, so we're not
Oh, you
passing
do?
any of that on. We're in no place right now where we're passing on anything to this
At
point.
the, real,
Nothing,
even
zero.
even with the accelerated cost, you're
Yeah,
able
yeah,
to
yeah,
manage it.
yeah. We're
Okay.
still we're still absorbing it, and our original strategy was to absorb 50% of it.
Hmm.
You know, but even us, we just didn't know. We didn't know how many times something had to go over the border and back. So it's just
Sure.
like we were swagging the math because it was coming at us so quickly.
Yeah.
So
And changing. Yeah.
and we're still sort of swagging it because we just don't have any clue what the impact is really going to be.
Mhm. Yeah, now this is an unfair question, and and
Yeah, it's
I'll
cool.
preface that with this because I don't think really anybody has an answer, but I'm just curious based on your readings of things, just how do you see things playing out with tariffs? Any sense of the end game, or or is is it too muddled to say?
Uh, you know, I'll just follow like Warren Buffett. Someone's got to pay for it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
like, what does that tell you? Like, someone's going to pay for it, right? So it's just going to get passed along down the line. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so um, I don't think any of this ends well.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to do it all over again, it just would have been slower and more controlled, and I get the need for it. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, how do I think it? Unfortunately, like Jamie Dimon, Warren
Mm-hmm.
Buffett, all these people have the same position on it. It's
Mm-hmm.
what is it, 90% recessionary? So,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I hope not. Like I really do, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't see how charging it. It's just a tax.
Mm-hmm.
In history, it's we've done this two times in history in the last 250 years or whatever it's been,
Mm-hmm.
and both times the results were the same.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So do you think there's any you know final 5 seconds of the game Hail Mary that like there's trade deals struck that mitigate it significantly, that reduce some of those impacts? Do you think there's hope of that, or is it
I,
is
a hundred, I absolutely think so because
yeah,
we've reversed course 35 times,
yeah,
but I still think the damage is done. Like I mean, I'm in Europe today.
yeah,
it's different here than it
How
was
so, how
last
so
year.
would you characterize? Because I knew you're over there. You're over there for
The
work. Yeah.
energy,
Yeah.
yeah, the energy is just different. It's just
Okay.
different, like so, um, I have partners over here, you talk to them and the conversations are, a lot like they were 4 years ago, but much more, they're more heated.
Okay. To say. Okay.
So, there's a lot more ire, disappointment, right? So, um, seeing COVID, a lot of COVID conversations, feels like COVID again, those kinds of
Feels like that.
conversations. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I don't know how you take that. I mean, but do I think this has a happy ending? I think that, if President Trump has shown us anything, is he's willing to do some radical stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe he'll be radical enough to just put this thing away and focus on something else. But I do think there's been some damage done for, if nothing more, the goodwill that's been
Okay.
curated over hundreds of years. So, in particular with countries like Canada. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sobering assessment there. Just, I mean, any final thoughts beyond that? I really appreciate you taking some time. I think these kinds of looks into how these things affect businesses and what you're doing to adapt are very valuable to hear.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I mean, we're, you know, we, you know, we're what, a 35-year-old business. We've been through three cycles. I've been in this business for 35 years.
Hmm.
Everything's got an up and a down. The pie's going to be bigger when it's over.
Hmm.
We're fortunate to have, amazing distributors and customers. So uh, I think like when you get to the other side of these things, you're just better off for it. But it's kind of crummy going through it.
It's a bit of a slog getting there. All
Yeah,
right.
it's
Yeah.
rough. But
Yeah.
every up has to have a down. And unfortunately we're in the down right now, I think.
All right. All right. Well, Randy, again, I really appreciate you
Yeah,
taking time to speak with me, being honest and kind of giving a no hold bars look on just where things stand for you and your in your business. So thank you so much for your time.
no sweat. I'm happy to talk. Thanks for talking to me.